welcome to Unlock Your Blocks. My name is Elyssa, and I'm really excited today because we have a great episode waiting for you. My guest, Rebecca Lynn, she's one of my longtime friends. She's also a colleague, and she and I have been each other's clients on and off. This is a woman that I just trust implicitly, and I love to the absolute moon and back. And Rebecca, can I call you Becca?
Yeah, of course.
I can't say it without, I can't say the R on the beginning because I always just call you Becca. Becca is a wealth relationship manager, and she has this well-rounded situation in her life. She's one of the most artistic people you will ever meet. She's also a speaker and a dance artist. She has her master's of science in management from the University of Indianapolis here, which is a very prestigious situation. So she has managed to combine a dance scholarship and a dance career with a career in finance now and business and all these amazing things. And I cannot wait for her to talk to you about how she got to where she is, because it's kind of a funny story. Not really. It's funny, not really funny, haha, but it's how we ended up becoming friends. And we joke to this day about hey, I'm real sorry about your life. So Rebecca's passion is to bring healing, hope, and transformation to the world around her through financial education, strategic community partnerships, and artistic movement. And she is phenomenal at all of them, you guys. So I'm excited for you to learn from her today. I'm excited to learn from her today and see what some of her takeaways are from her incredible journey. Thank you so much, Becca, for joining me on the show.
I am so excited to be here. It's such an honor because you're a good friend of mine, but I also respect you and really look up to you. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. It's the same, girl. Same. I look up to you. I respect you. You are such an expert in all of your fields of expertise. It's wild to me. I want to start out by asking you today, can you give the listeners an idea of how did you arrive as a wealth relationship manager and also a speaker and a dance artist and all these things? How does this make sense? Make it make sense to us.
Oh my goodness. So I have to take it back to 2018. 2018 was a pivotal year for me where it felt like my life got turned upside down. But in all actuality, it was a divine appointment for me to uncover other gifts that I had inside of me that I didn't realize. So in college, I was a dance major and an athlete. I ran track. I always was really big in movement. And most of my friends and family, colleagues and community, they would call on me to perform and to choreograph and to teach dance. And I think no one would have guessed 10, 15 years later, I would be in the financial industry, not even myself. What ended up occurring is I had a job as a dance program director, and I was going through graduate school, and I was at a dance company. I was living that dance athletic life. It was really great. But as I was teaching a class and helping a student with a specific movement, an accident ended up occurring, and I ended up with a concussion. And it was the first time that I had ever had a concussion. Long story short, I had to stop physical movement and really limit all of the extra activities I was involved in to focus on my health and to focus on finishing graduate school. And during that time, I reached out to a good friend of mine who worked in a bank, and I ended up getting into banking. I said, listen, I need a job where I'm not a manager. I don't take work home. I just can focus on school because my capacity was low because of the concussion. And
also, what were you weren't going to risk re-injuring, because your whole existence at that point, you were coaching. I mean, you were so busy all the time. You were coaching athletes. You were teaching dance. You were organizing dance programs. You were doing all
my
these
own dance company. It was
Yes, that's right.
insane.
You were choreographing, you were performing, you guys were competing. So your whole life screeched to a halt. I'll never forget watching this happen for you, because it was but Becca is dance. She is athleticism.
I used to say dance is life. I literally thought that was my life. I was like, oh, this is what I'm going to do. And everyone else thought I was going to do it as well. I thought I was going to be a world-renowned choreographer and
you were heading there.
Yeah.
It was your whole world crashed around you when this and it's not just, I mean, a concussion doesn't quite cover it to me. I don't know if there was extra to the diagnosis, but I have never seen concussion recovery as intensive as yours was. I have family members who had concussions, and you had to just literally not for almost weeks, and you had to be in the dark, and you couldn't drive yourself. I mean, your whole life shifted, and everyone had to do without you.
Yeah, I became dependent upon everyone in my life. And what happened for me in those moments when I realized I couldn't care for myself for the first time in my life, I thought, man, I'm worthless. I felt worthless. I felt
Mm.
like I didn't have value. And I was really, to be honest, I was depressed. And I had a mentor of mine who brought that to my attention. He said, I think you're finding your value in your performance and your ability to do instead of be. And that
Oh
was
my
a
gosh. Okay,
lesson for
hold
me.
on. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah.
So this whole thing, like the rug got pulled out from under you. And then it was like, that's not bad enough. Like, actually, there's something wrong inside too that I have to now pay attention to and address. That is so painful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Continue,
the
please.
the real lesson there, I'm glad you pointed that out though. That's really good. The real lesson there is my entire life, most of us come from a childhood that has some type of dysfunction in it. And one of the survival instincts that I developed during that time was to be the hero child, if anyone knows what that is, where I
I
performed
mean,
to find my value. I got my needs met because I could do for others. I learned what people needed from me so that I can get my needs met. So athletics and dance became that thing for me where I found my voice, but it was imbalanced in that I started to find my identity there. And when those things got shut down because I had this brain injury and I had to rely on everyone else, I couldn't perform. And I had to believe that people loved me because they just loved me and not because of what I could do for them. That was a hard reality for me that made me have to look at who I really am and figure out what my gifts actually are rather than the talents that we just naturally have, because I think gifts need to be developed. And so what I learned in that season, fast forward, I told you I reached out to my friend because I still needed a job. I still needed to work. And I ended up working at a bank as a float teller. And I thought, I'm just going to do this job so I can finish graduate school and then I'll move forward from there. But one thing led to another. I got into the banking industry, but as I was a float teller, that means I would go from branch to branch, assisting them in whatever they needed at each location. And while I was there, I did what I do best, which is I connected with people. I love people. So I would talk to the clients, and those clients at every branch I would go to would name me by name in customer surveys saying how great of experience they have, even if I was there for just one day. That got up to the regional operations leader who helps with client experience. I asked her to lunch. We went to a country club. She and I found out that we had a lot of things in common. I learned a lot from her. They did a rearrangement and a restructuring within the company, and they had a new role, and they knew I was in graduate school, and she put my name in the bucket for this new position that was called a financial wellness consultant. And out of graduate school, I accepted that position. I started to heal and had opportunities outside of banking. I could have gone into the dance and athletic world, and I turned it down because I found a sense of purpose in the work I was doing within the bank. And that began my journey. And my love for people developed, my love for financial education and community impact through the bank developed. And before I knew it, I laid dance on the altar, so to speak, of saying, I'm going to lay this down to find out who I really am and what I can really do. And that's how I ended up in banking. So
that is insane. That's amazing. So I know part of this story just from having been in your life during this time, but I love that how you are kind of categorizing the things that happened. It was like, okay, so this happened and then this brought this out in me. So, okay. During this process, that can't have been easy. So what would you say were your biggest challenges as you were morphing into this future that you couldn't see? And did you have any sabotage that was happening? Like, was there?
oh boy.
She's rolling her eyes. We're about to get the full tea spilled here.
Yes.
But what is that like? Because most of us, when the thing we think that we are getting our worth from, like that thing is what we're known for, that thing is what we're good at, and then all of a sudden it's like someone cuts it out from under us. Not only is there depression, but there can be confusion. There can be all kinds of protector parts that start to come out of us in that survival mode. So if you don't mind sharing with the listeners what that might look like for you and how did you get over it? Like, what were the steps that you had to take to get to the other side?
Absolutely. It was a journey. So right away, I am in this position as a financial wellness consultant. I've never been in this position. And it's, a financial education role where I'm working with clients who have more money than I had ever had up until that point in my life. Yet I had to instruct these individuals because that was the area of expertise that I was developing and growing in. I felt unqualified. And nobody wants to say that, but it's how I felt. I felt unqualified, and what that would do and how that would show up for me in my day-to-day work life is I wouldn't always go for the opportunities. I wouldn't always, even though I could see a solution to a client problem, I would not present it to them because I didn't feel that I had the value to add, even though I did. And so there was this constant battle internally of I'm in this role and I've studied to be here, yet I'm new and I have so much to learn. And these people have so much more money than I do. What do I do with this? Who am I to give them advice on this? And so it caused me to miss out on some opportunities. And little by little, I started to learn as I watched myself take risk, and I watched managers and mentors come alongside me and say, you got it. Like, you love people, you have the relationship, you're good with client interactions. We can help you with the skills. And I started to trust that. And I think that trust and then taking the risk while being afraid and saying, you know what, client, Mr. and Mrs. Client, I see the solution for you. I see a few solutions for you. What are your thoughts here? And then them say yes to the solution. And then I actually see it in one instance save a marriage. So I learned by just trying and going it and doing it afraid that, hey, I belong here. Hey, I have skills that I didn't even realize that I had. And that led me to promotions and other opportunities, me getting my securities and investment licensing. Now I'm being in private bank and wealth management and doing a lot of community work and sitting on boards. Even in these new boards that I'm on, I realized, hey, I have ideas that people want to hear. And I'm not saying that every idea that I have is brilliant, but I have ideas and I've learned to trust that and respect those ideas in others, which has caused me to have a certain level of success because I've learned how to create that synergy because I have it within myself now. That was a long answer, but
That was phenomenal. I'm like, okay, soundbite, soundbite, soundbite. Like, that's amazing. Wow. I mean, just so incredible because that journey of self-doubt is what we're all in this for. Like everyone that's listening to this podcast, we all have this in common. We're all trying to figure out how to become people who don't second guess themselves and women who can just decide to go do something and then just go do it rather than putting it off or stuffing our feelings down and just railroading ourselves into something. So this is just so beautiful. So so the reason you knew something had to change is because you were watching yourself miss opportunities that you actually could have taken advantage of. And so this imposter syndrome, because that's like the who am I to do this thing, or I'm not qualified, or, there are so many other people that know so much more than I do. So can you walk us through, was there like a moment when you decided that you weren't going to do that and you were going to take the next risk, or was it a gradual process? What did that look like for you to get to the other side?
that's a good question. So I'm going to say something that will seem totally irrelevant, but it shows a life principle that I've carried with me, and it helps me get through hard things whenever I see an obstacle and I don't see an ability to get past it.
Okay, so hold on. Everybody put on your listening ears. This is the part. This is the part of the episode that you're going to need to remember. Okay,
this
I'm ready.
This might help somebody. Okay?
This might help someone. I'm going to write this down. I'm like, okay, lay it on me.
So I got my driver's license very late. I had my permit very early, but my driver's license I got really late. And the reason for that is because I was afraid of driving. And I was so self-conscious of failing in front of someone. And when you have your permit, you have to drive in front of somebody. And so I went through high school not getting my driver's license, and I got to college. And when I got to college, I had a friend who sometimes have to pick me up. And she would say, listen, girl, every time I pick you up, you're going to drive and I'm going to help you. And so she forced me to drive. And then when I graduated and I got home, you guys, I graduated from college and went home and still didn't have my license. But I went home and I decided I was going to get my license. And the thing that motivated me was, one, if I didn't have my license, it meant all the other goals that I had were going to be tremendously difficult to achieve because I needed that independence. So I had a greater goal in mind that superseded my fear.
And let's
So,
just for any international listeners, so where we live, Rebecca lives very close to where I do in Indiana. And so where we live, there is no public transportation to speak of. We have one bus system that is very, very lackluster in the main city in our area. And there isn't any other way to get around unless you're doing rideshare and paying for
yeah.
rideshare or taxis.
And we didn't have that when I graduated from
That
high
was
school.
not a
Okay,
thing back
maybe
then.
a
That's right.
taxi. We had the bus line, and let me tell you where the bus line took me to the only job that would hire me after college, which was
Oh
a pizza place making
my
$8 an hour. Okay,
God.
so the girl had to make a move, and so
Yeah,
I
she
decided.
had to take time. The only way to exist in this part of the Midwest in the US is to have your own car or to have access to a car and to be able to drive yourself. That's the only way you're going to make money. You can't get
Exactly.
to your job otherwise.
Yeah. So, like, what helped me get past my fear of getting my driver's license was I wanted the independence and I had a goal that the fear that I think you know what I'm trying to say. I
Yes.
had a
Yeah, yeah.
goal that
Yes.
superseded the fear that I had. And so what did I end up do? What I ended up doing is I decided that I am going to pursue these driver's license. And I know, just like riding a bike, just like anything that we do over and over again, one day this is going to be mundane for me. One day I'm going to drive. I'm not going to have to think about it. One day I'm going to be that person that's like, man, I don't even feel like driving to the grocery store. Can somebody else do it? And it's going to be, that was the thought process that I had. And so then I ended up getting my driver's license and I just drove and afraid on the side roads. I didn't take the highway for a long time. And I just built up the capacity to drive. And now I drive everywhere. And so every time I get to a place in my life, I know that seems minor, but I had a real fear. But every time I get to a place in my life where it's like, this is a mountain that I don't know that I can climb, but I look around and I see others doing it. And I think, you know what? I can climb this mountain. And one day I'll be climbing this mountain and it'll just be normal for me to climb this mountain. And so I just do it afraid, knowing that with time and every single day working at it, I'll get there. And
That is phenomenal. That's phenomenal. Okay, so you touched on something really great here because one of the things that I like to talk about is the window of tolerance for change. Because when we're rewiring our neural pathways in our brain and when we're rewiring our nervous system to get out of survival mode, we have a small window of tolerance for change and for things that look different, things that are scary and unknown. And what I love about your story is about driving is that you didn't just like jump in. You kind of like weaned yourself off of the things that you originally needed. And then you got a real fire under you when you're like, I can't actually survive on the amount of money I can make taking the bus to work. And so it's like, okay, so like you're up against this thing, but you had been taking steps all along. It's not like you never got your permit, right? Like you got the permit, but then you just didn't move forward from there. And then your friend was forcing you to drive. And then it's like, okay, now I have to do this. And the pep talk that you gave yourself, I love that because doing something afraid still has to be within the window of tolerance. So you didn't just go out and force yourself to drive on the highway. And if you had, it might have been dangerous, right?
Mhm.
Because to drive in a high pressure situation, being that afraid, like having a real deep fear, would have put you in danger potentially. So you instinctively knew to stay within what you could tolerate. And even though it was at the very edge of what you could tolerate, you could drive on those back roads and get around. And then
Exactly.
eventually you worked your way up. So I think this is such gold because when we're looking at doing something afraid as high achievers, many times we're just like, shut that down, shut that fear down, like just do the darn thing. But yeah, push through the pain. But that's actually not okay for our nervous systems anymore. We have to be the ones that nurture ourselves through that fear. But there wasn't another alternative. You needed to be able to drive. And now you do drive all over the place. You go everywhere. And you have the
Exactly.
cutest car, by the way. She has this bright yellow SUV. It's like the cutest. Um, but I love that your story demonstrates that you were paying attention to where your window of tolerance was and you slowly enlarged it. So we're going to go on the side roads for a while, and then maybe we're going to try a highway run, and then we're going to go for a little bit further of a distance, and then eventually get there. And then you can take that same rinse and repeat cycle for anything else that feels hard. It's just
Exactly.
such a beautiful example of working within yourself in a way that's compassionate and not shaming. And I love that you said, I mean, that's the kind of pep talk I would give to my son, you know? Wow, feels scary today, that's a big deal because that's something new for you and that's something you've been afraid of. Today, if you keep doing this, someday after you've done it over and over, you're going to be the person that does this without thinking about it at all. And
Exactly.
in fact, I've given him that pep talk about like reading and doing math and all these different things that we have to learn to do to exist. I just think that's the most
Yeah.
beautiful example of how you loved yourself through it.
Yeah.
So, what have you been able to do now that you've kind of like moved beyond a lot of, well, driving? I mean, that's pretty
I
awesome.
drive now.
Yeah, you drive now. But I assume that there are other things that have been pretty impactful that you've been able to approach that same way. And then you've been able to get to the other side where that mountain is your everyday mountain. Can you give a couple of examples of things you've been able to do now that you've worked through it?
Absolutely. It shows up in so many ways. I'll say in this particular time in my life, I am seeing seeds that were planted in me from that season of my life when I was trying to get my driver's license that are starting to blossom now, and going through that season of the concussion where I had to, like I said, lay dance on the altar and figure out who I really am, not just what I can do. And now I'm in a space in my life where I know that I can help my clients in the wealth management business. My clients say, I want to work with you, and I'm here because of you. And so there's that confidence in that space. But I also realize that I know myself better now, that I have a greater capacity to now pick up dance, and it's not my identity, but rather an extension of my love for people and the values that I have to uplift my community and bring joy and bring healing. And so I think now that I don't have the constant self-sabotage, and I'm not going to say that it just disappeared. There are moments where it still comes up, but I recognize it much quicker and I'm able to speak to myself and walk myself through that process. But I think the exciting thing now is when I've picked dance back up, it some kind of way makes sense in this season of my life because I'm not holding on to anything as my identity. My same clients who I work with in the wealth business, I teach classes to for dance, for empowerment, because a lot of these folks, they're leaders and they're the CEOs and business owners, and they just need a reprieve and an opportunity to connect with other people and have a human to human interaction. And so I find that dance makes me human in these meetings with my clients. And I have the confidence to say I can be all of that in one place. And I think before I didn't know that I could be all of this and show up as all of me in every room that I go into, no matter how diverse.
That is incredible. What a gift. I once read that the definition of wholeness, because I've been trained in trauma recovery to help my clients with trauma, and I've, brain science and neuroscience and neuropathway rewiring. And one of the courses that I took talked about the definition of wholeness after you've gone through a healing process is being able to be the most yourself that you can in every single setting. And it seems like you've gotten to a place where, and then you said something so beautiful. You said you've got the confidence now that you can let that there's permission to show up in the
And
essence.
even desire from others. I
Yes,
realized
people want that from you.
I was leaving a lot on the table when I was only showing up as one piece of myself. I think a lot of us don't realize that a lot of the problems in the world, the solution to that problem is someone being their true authentic self, that they show up with their DNA, and their DNA is the only DNA like their DNA that could solve that particular problem. And so that's where my confidence comes from. It's like, I know who I am.
That is
And it's a
insane.
gift,
So
just
beautiful.
like you're a gift. And each of us are gifts, especially when we're showing up in our wholeness.
Yes, and that is, I mean, my part of my mission statement for my business is that I want all women to be able to rise up in their highest and best self so that they can, when they're unhindered by sabotage, by trauma, by the things, the mindsets and the wiring that has held them back and kept them playing small. Like, just imagine if all of us are in this rising tide of
Yeah.
women who know ourselves and who are confident to be ourselves, who aren't second guessing ourselves, and who are working actively. Like, we're not going to just stop sabotaging one day and everything will be peachy keen until we get to the other side. It's like, okay, I love that you have your system now. Okay, I'm going to do it afraid and I'm going to do it a little at a time and I'm going to do it in a way that is repetitive so that I can get comfortable and move on to the next mountain. So we all just have to figure out, how are we decoding ourselves, listening to what our bodies and our minds and our hearts are telling us so that we can know why we're stopping ourselves. Why is it that the driver's license does not seem like the next right step yet? Like, why is it, it's like all
Yes.
these little things. It's like, okay, that's an important piece. It feels like such a small thing, like just go get the driver's license, right? But it wasn't. Your whole
Right.
system had to get on board and you learned yourself in that moment so that you could use then those techniques and those tools and enlarge your skill, toolbox of skills to get to the other side of the other things that are challenging you now. So it gets easier and easier, I think. Not that the challenges ever go away, and we'll all still be facing traumas, until kingdom come.
Exactly.
But I love this idea of just getting to be your whole self, and not just because you're like, here I am, world, like it or not. But if people are like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you showed up this way.
Yeah.
This is the solution I've been looking for. And I think if we can all move toward that, I mean, what a beautiful testimony to how wonderful the whole soul is when it's all together, right? When we're all bringing the
Yeah.
whole thing that we have to offer.
Exactly.
So beautiful. Oh my gosh. Okay. I know that we need to wrap soon. I have 3 questions that I like
Yes.
to ask at the end. And you know this. She's like, I listen to your podcast. I know what your questions are.
Oh, yes. I listen to every episode of your podcast.
My gosh. Stop it. I love you. No, really, go on. No, I'm just kidding.
You're amazing. You're beautiful.
So if there's a woman listening today and she is feeling like, I know what that feels like to have this thing that's making me feel afraid, or maybe she's relating to the part of your story where you talked about, who am I to even do this? Like, I'm so unqualified. What would you recommend to her? Another thing I wanted to comment on, and this might lead into this question really nicely. You came up with baby steps for yourself within that window of tolerance. And so maybe she's sitting there being like, I've tried to do the self-help things. I've tried to do this. I've tried to do that. What would you tell her to break it down into next? What would you tell her would be the first baby step to take that could help her get to that journey where this is a routine mountain that she climbs?
Absolutely. I do this still to this day. I just had this conversation with myself yesterday. I know where I want to end up generally, right? None of us have control over outcomes. We only have control over the inputs and then somewhat of the process, and then outcomes happen as a result of what we've done, right? You plant seeds in the ground, you cannot decide what's going to pop up. But what I focus on is, how can I move the needle even a little bit each day? What am I doing today that is moving me in that direction? And then everything else it's not for right now. And I know that that sounds like I'm oversimplifying things, but my brain is always overacting. It's a really great gift, and also it can be a hindrance at time. But I think
For a long
simplify.
time with the concussion, it's like, listen, I'm going to get back
It's like,
to
come on,
those
gotta go in overdrive. But I'd say focus on what you can do today, whether it's tiny to move the needle in the right thread. If that's, you need to send an email to an executive at a company because they're a part of an organization that you want to be a part of, send the email, set up the coffee. If that's just doing the research and getting on LinkedIn to look at them, do that. If that's sitting on your couch and drinking a cup of tea and just taking 3 deep breaths, do that. But just be with yourself and then move the needle. If what your goal is to get to a place of a sound mind, then maybe you just need to sit down. And I think it's
like, you could have, I mean, right now you might as well just tell us to go jump out of a second story window. Like, it was just sitting down. Like, what do you mean? I don't understand. We're the overworkers, overachievers of the world. But that could be the thing you do afraid,
I'm
right?
not kidding. Sit down. I am not kidding. And that can solve a lot of problems, because a lot of times when we sit down, our brain has time to just kind of dump and process all that's been going on while we've just been doing.
Yes.
Sit down somewhere. It'll come to you.
Sit down. That's going to be the whole takeaway from this episode. Just sit down, ladies.
Sit down somewhere.
Sit down. I love that. Okay, so real quick before we go, I want to ask you. I always ask, what is your favorite go-to like pump up song? Like the song that gets you motivated and ready to go? Because we all know that a good dance party or even just listening to some music can shift the energy and can get you into a place of feeling more like yourself.
I love this question. My song, I love music, but there's a few songs that I come back to, and this one is constantly in rotation. And it's Lovely Day by Bill Withers.
Yep. I know it.
Good Lord, I'm about to cry talking about this song, but I'm not kidding. That song right there, it gets me going.
That's amazing. I
Yeah,
love
it
it.
gets
And
me
the
going.
lyrics are so good. It's just
Hmm.
like it's just such a no matter what's happening, I can be here, I can be present, and it can be a lovely day. It's just such a sweet, I love that song too.
Yeah.
Okay, and we're gonna close out with this. What is your go-to self-care when you don't have much time?
Okay, so I have a few, but there's one that's consistent for me, particularly just right now in this time of my life, is I have a journal specifically for, I like to call them little glimmers in the day.
Yeah.
Um, I try to notice when my heart comes alive for something because there's a lot of things that are stressful and different things that come throughout the day that can be distracting. But there's always something in the day that's a little glimmer where I can tell, like, I'm moving in the right direction. Like, that thing right there, like, makes my heart sing. And I just write it down. And it might just be one sentence, it might just be a few words, but I write it down and it helps my mind just refocus on an amazing thing. And my glimmer is being on this podcast with you. And
Mine too, by the way.
it's
This
such
is
a
my girl.
yeah, it's a glimmer, and I write it down, and just that focus, I think it just snatches me right out of survival. If I was in survival, to say, no, Becca, like, this day is good, this moment is good, there are good things happening.
Okay, we're going to close out in just a moment. I heard someone say the other day that they started a note in their phone called Good Things Are Always Happening to Me. And that
Mm,
started doing something similar. And because they started to search for those things every day, that their brain was fixated on the really, really good stuff rather than on the really, really rough stuff. And this is part of the long-term anxiety rewiring pathway
yeah.
is to start training your brain to look for the good stuff so that it believes ultimately, good things are always happening, and ultimately, I'm going to be safe and good.
Yep. Yes.
I love it. Becca, thank you so much. This was so beautiful. What a gift. I thank you for your time. Thank you for your story. I've never even heard you talk about some parts of your story, and I've known you forever. So
Oh,
this is
that's
so
awesome.
juicy, and I know that somebody out there is going to benefit from this. So let us know, where can people find you if they want to like keep following along for your glimmers and your golden nuggets?
Absolutely. So for my business and community engagement, you can find me on LinkedIn at Rebecca Lomax, Rebecca, last name Lomax. I do a lot of different community work. I love speaking. I love
You guys, she's
uplifting.
a dynamite speaker. If you need a speaker for anything, she's spoken for me a few times and she's going to be speaking for me again soon.
Yes, I love that. So LinkedIn is great for that. And then on Instagram, I am Becca underscore in underscore Christ. And then Facebook is Becca Lomax. So many different names, you
I
guys.
love
It's
it. We're
all
gonna
over.
have it all in the show notes for everybody too. So don't worry if you didn't catch any of that, we'll just look in the show notes. But I wanted you to be able to say it out loud in case somebody's on the run. They want to be able to follow you right this second. So thank you so much, Becca, for all your time. And I just love you so much. Thank you for this.
I
And
love you
I know
too.
that somebody's changed because of what they heard you share today. So thank
Thank
you.
you for having me.